yesterday I posted a story on a platform that starts with Insta and ends with Gram. And I got a notification. There was a little red exclamation point on my story, and I clicked on it, and it said, "This has been blocked due to quote unquote trademark or copyright issues." The story was a screenshot of a headline, something I've done a million times, something lots of people do all the time on social media. I screenshotted the headline, which is not considered intellectual property. It is a story. I cited it as well. I posted a link in the story to the full article, and I wrote a comment about it. And it got blocked by Instagram. And I think it has everything to do with trademark and copyright issues and nothing to do with the fact that the headline was, "Denmark ends COVID vaccinations for almost everyone under 50. Yeah, so I figured since I got banned, since this story got banned, by me at least on Instagram, I would just record a full video about it and post it to YouTube because they're known for letting information flow freely on that platform. So fingers crossed. This is a story I've seen floating around most, as with any kind of more controversial stories around vaccinations, especially. Most of the first search results you're going to see are related to, fact checking, that this is not a complete about face in their vaccine program, that they still work, that they're only ending it because the vaccines work so well that the population has immunity. So you'll see spins like that. I'm just going to go straight to the Denmark government's website and read their new vaccination policy. So, vaccination against COVID-19. The Danish Health Authority expects that the number of COVID-19 infections will increase during autumn and winter. So, they think that infections are going to increase. Therefore, we recommend vaccination of people aged 50 and over, as well as selected risk groups. And then you can read more about the program. And essentially what they're saying is the goal of vaccination, they say, we know it doesn't prevent contracting COVID-19. We know that. The vaccine program is not intended to prevent you from getting or spreading COVID. Period. They acknowledge that on this website. You can go to, I'll post the link in the show notes. You can go and read it yourself. They say that through the vaccine program, our goal is to prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and death. That risk increases with age and with serious comorbidities. Therefore, we are only recommending that you stay up to date on vaccines if you are over the age of 50 and if you meet certain qualifications that would categorize you as having a serious, maybe serious immune compromisation. I can't talk today. So that's now their vaccine program. One of the interesting things I found when I just Google searched it is it took a while to get to the Danish website itself. What I saw first were a lot of stories debunking the myth that this has anything to do with the recent Danish report that was published around the higher risk of adverse events in the form of myocarditis in younger boys. Nothing to do with that. It's just the spin that you'll read if you Google search this is all around how it's a myth that this has anything to do with vaccines and boosters not working. It is solely to do with the fact that just their population is so well vaccinated that because of that, they have just acquired such herd immunity. Vaccines worked. Therefore, there's no need for anybody else to get protected against COVID-19. Something along those lines. And you can click on their frequently asked questions. Why are people under age 50 not to be revaccinated? This is the Danish government. The purpose of the vaccination program is to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Therefore, the people at highest risk of becoming severely ill will be offered booster vaccination. The purpose of vaccination is not to prevent infection with COVID-19, and people aged under 50 are therefore currently not being offered booster vaccination. So this is now well accepted fact. I've talked about this before, but I think that we've shifted the narratives and shifted perspective like almost on demand that we forget that that's kind of a big statement. I mean, if a year ago you would have said the vaccine has nothing to do with preventing you from getting ill, has nothing to do with preventing you from getting or spreading COVID. That's just, it's interesting to me how that's just like flippantly thrown around now. When originally the whole reason that we were all supposed to get vaccinated, and the reason that still, if you still just search boosters in the United States, most of the first results you're going to get are why you need to get a booster shot regardless of your age. That if you're over the age of 5, you've got to get a booster in the US. A lot of articles I see still around, oh, how concerning it is that only about half of our population has still gotten boosted. We are supposed to boost all of our population, only half. That's very concerning. We're supposed to be ending COVID. We're never going to do it if people don't get boosted and stay up to date on their quote unquote vaccinations, which has turned into a regular dosing of a pharmaceutical intervention, not a vaccine in the traditional sense. Let me just say that again. Okay. So I'm going to mention this new report that has, and by new, I think it came out, September 7th. So do boosters save people from getting very sick with COVID? If that is the goal of boosters, haven't you seen, thank God I got boosted because my infection is mild, from a 20-something-year-old whose infection would have been mild. Do boosters save people? So according to the British government, their data is saying the opposite. Not that the jury's still out, the opposite. So the mRNA, we're talking once again about the mRNA technology, so Moderna, Pfizer. So newly boosted, mRNA boosted adults, this is just data from the British government, ages 40 to 74 are twice as likely to be hospitalized for COVID as those who have not recently been boosted. And here are the specifics. So for people in that age range, again, we're talking about 40 to 74, the data for age range, the lower adult age range looks similar. It's just not as high hospitalization rates, of course, because they're at much lower risk for being hospitalized. But the trends that I'm going to talk through are the same. So for that age group, 40 to 74 years old, so arguably a lot of people who are already at risk, or at a higher risk at least, of getting severe illness from COVID, if they have been if they have been boosted as recently as 3 months or less, they have a 27.9% risk of hospitalization from COVID. If they have been boosted 3 to 6 months ago, they have about a 22.5% of hospitalization, according to the British government's data. That is less than 27.9%. If they have been boosted, if it has been greater than 6 months ago, they have only a 13.9% chance. Now, we don't have non-boosted numbers to compare this to in this scenario. But what that tells us, and again, the under 40-year age range looks like a similar trajectory. They're just much, much lower hospitalization rates and risk among that age group. But 28% if you've just gotten your booster, 22.5% of being hospitalized if it's been a few months, 13.9% if your booster has basically worn off, you guys. Because how often are we being told to be boosted now? How long, the vaccine effects we know are waning much more quickly than originally we were told. Or I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say much more quickly waning than we originally anticipated, than they originally thought. So we're needing to be boosted more and more. We know that the toxicity of this mRNA technology increases with repeated dosing. And now we're seeing that, according to the British government's own data, hospitalization rates are going up for people who have recently been boosted. That as their body processes and discards any kind of benefit in terms of immunity that they've gotten from that booster, that they have a lower risk of being hospitalized once their booster wears off. That's insane. That's insane. You have a higher risk of being hospitalized if you've been recently boosted. Can we get these numbers for the US and the other heavily mRNA vaccinated countries, please? I would love to see that. We need to see that. That's alarming data. Okay. Another story on September 8th, we're seeing death numbers. I did the episode prior to this on just death rates and the trend in death and birth rates in highly mRNA vaccinated countries. The numbers from Australia recently were published. About 95% of adults have received COVID vaccines. Most of those are mRNA shots, and most of them are boosted as well. They have recently, their death rates, just all-cause mortality, not COVID deaths, all-cause mortality, have soared to the highest levels in at least 13 years. This is as of August, so way above their 5-year average. They offer near real-time reporting on death trends of millions of people who are heavily vaccinated but have had little exposure to COVID before being vaccinated. And the numbers, it just kind of dissects all of the numbers in different age ranges. It's staggering. It's a continuation of what I talked about last time and the increase in death rates in these countries. And I just did a fun little, just my own. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I have zero medical expertise, zero scientific expertise. I just know how to research and look at stuff and decide for myself. That is my only qualification for being here, is just this is what I look at, and I'm sharing exactly what I have looked at and things that I find interesting, and sometimes things that I find concerning. So this is a list of U.S. states ranked by their booster rates. So it'll tell you one by one states, and this is, let's see, the point in time. This is as of September 7th. So it says as of September 7th, Americans have received a booster about 48.6. That number is going to be important. We're going to come back to that. So less than half of the country has been boosted, but it goes through state by state. Maine, for example, is at 58.5%. So you can see the top states in compliance. Then I just pulled up for funsies, same website. This is just Becker Hospital Review. Again, I'll post this in the show notes. States ranked by hospitalization rates, COVID-19 hospitalization rates. What I find alarming, and this is as of September 15th, 2022, so basically the same time frame. Overall, hospitalization rates have decreased over the last 2 weeks, which is very encouraging. But y'all, the states with the highest hospitalization rates match pretty well the states with the highest booster rates. Again, I'm not a statistician, but I would love to hear their take on this, if there's any conclusion or correlation at least that can be drawn from this, because I'm looking at, the top 10, 15 on the booster rates, and those states, Michigan, Maine, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, these are some of the states, Colorado, Minnesota, some of the states with the highest hospitalization rates from COVID. Coincidence. It's got to be coincidence. My goodness. Okay. And I also wanted to do a quick review. I need to pull up a screenshot to do this, and I need to find that on my computer. This, you guys, is a new report that came out from... Oh, this is a CDC's website. Okay. So CDC, Centers for Disease Control. Okay, in the U.S., and I saw a YouTube video where this doctor kind of dissects this to basically be like, is this real? Is this true? Because it seems alarming, so we just want to make sure it's correct. It's correct. So 44% of those hospitalized who ended up in the hospital in the United States, just in the United States from COVID. Those who end up being hospitalized. There, I just wanted to prove that I could say it, y'all. With COVID, 44% of those had been boosted with at least a third or fourth dose. So 44%, and this report is taken, that's why I said that number I said earlier, vaccination rate in the US now being 48-ish%. It was lower than that at the point where this data reports. So this data was reporting from March to May of 2022, and said that about 39.1% of those people who were hospitalized from COVID had received their vaccination series. Man, I really can't talk. I apologize, y'all. And a booster, so 3 jabs total. 5% of those hospitalized had also received a fourth booster. So they had their first 2, a third booster, and then a fourth booster. That equals, I'm not a mathematician or anything, but that equals 44.1%. So it is true that 44.1% of those hospitalized with COVID from March through May of the current year that we're in had been boosted at least once. They had received 3 to 4 jabs of mRNA vaccination technology. Yeah, that's alarming. That's really alarming, because these boosters are, again, why are we getting them? It's not to make the pharmaceutical companies billions and billions richer. It is not to continue centralizing power. It's not for any of those reasons. It is solely for the reason that we want to prevent hospitalizations, that word I can't say, and deaths. We want to prevent that, yet hospitalization rates, what are they telling us? That about the same percentage of the population that's being boosted is also being hospitalized, and that's being conservative. What is the data also telling us? Well, now it's suggesting, the data we have coming out of the UK, that your risk of getting severely ill from COVID and being hospitalized, oh my God, that's hilarious, goes up if you have recently been boosted. That's concerning. Man, I was going to go through one more story, and now I'm questioning my ability to even speak. If you're still bearing with me, bless you. And I apologize. Okay, so pivoting just a tad, but we're still talking about pharmaceutical companies. So I want to read you Biden's remarks, and this is just a few days ago, a speech he gave. Okay. Oh my gosh. So he's talking about recently passing the Inflation Reduction Act initially, and he's talking about how we beat Big Pharma, and I'm not exaggerating. As I said, I just signed into law a historic Inflation Reduction Act. Applause. I'm just reading. It wasn't easy to take big drug companies, but we did it. I've been fighting them since I got in Congress 180 years ago. Laughter. Yeah, he realizes he's 180 years old. That is funny. You know, we pay more for our prescription drugs in the U.S. than any other major country in the world. Here in the United States, okay? There's no reason for it. And so far I agree with him. For the last several decades, many of us, as if he's one of them, look at his track record, many of us have been trying to fix the problem. But for decades, Big Pharma tried to block giving lower drug prices for those on Medicare or anywhere else. For decades, Big Pharma won, year in, year out, because they own chunks of the Congress, because they had help like your senior Senator Ron Johnson, who said, boo, from the audience. No, I want to say what he said. And he repeats what he said. Not this year. We beat Pharma this year. We beat Pharma. And he says it in a grovelly voice. I'm trying to emulate the way he said it. We beat Pharma this year, and it mattered. We're going to change people's lives. Applause. We finally beat Pharma. Okay, does it feel like we beat Pharma? As they're, by the way, sitting billions, multiple billions of dollars richer since he has taken office. And yes, this trend started before Biden took office with COVID, but they have made bank from his continued policies around COVID-19. Top 20 recipients from pharmaceutical lobby money last year. Number one is, it's Joe Biden. Oh no. He beat Big Pharma, you guys, and accepted $8.7 million from them. Number two, to be fair, a distant second is Donald Trump. He took $2.6 million of their money. Joe Biden took more than the top 15 combined. My goodness. My microphone's about to fall again. The next, just to quickly read through the next on the list. So of the top 10, 2 of them are Republicans, 8 of them are Democrats. You've got Donald Trump as number 2, Bernie Sanders, Jamie Harrison, and you have to keep in mind that this was during an election cycle. John Ossoff, Pete Buttigieg, Raphael Warnock, Elizabeth Warren, I love names that are easy to say, Mark Kelly, and Mitch McConnell in 10th place. As if it's a competition, like for a winner. But yeah, Joe Biden gets the trophy. He collected almost $9 million from Biden. But he beat them, you guys. He beat Big Pharma. He is fighting them. That's why they're giving him so much of their money, is because he's going to take them down, you guys. So what is he referring to? He's referring to his newer policies and I won't go through it, but Trump actually did some good things as far as lowering prescription drug prices and trying to make this a little bit more fair and regulated in the US. So far, Biden has continued, at least the big rule that was put around that. We don't know if he's going to continue it, but so far that has stood in place. So, what he has promised, and Biden made a campaign promise to do this, and this is what he's saying this new Inflation Reduction Act legislation includes, is policies that are going to lower prescription drug prices by 60% in the US. That sounds great. That would lead me to believe, okay, if I'm paying $100 for my prescriptions today, then tomorrow when this takes effect, I will be paying $60. Sorry, $40. Even math is hard today, because he's lowering it by 60%. So here's what's really going to happen. So the legislation stipulates that by 2025, this will take effect in 2025. What they're going to do is they're going to pick 10 Medicare drugs. They're going to pick 10 to, as a symbol, say, look, we're lowering drug costs. They're going to pick 10 Medicare drugs, and then they're going to lower the prices of those drugs. And then in the next couple of years, they're going to add a few more to the list. Y'all, the analysis on this is kind of insane, because it's like, so most drugs will remain unaffected. So how many drugs are going to be unaffected by this? Most of them. Most of the drugs are going to be unaffected. He's also introducing price caps, which, again, the analysis concludes that this will leave the pharmaceutical companies unscathed. It'll be symbolic, political in nature. Look, we're lowering a few of the prescription drug costs. We're also introducing price caps. They're going to cap it at inflation rates, so you can only increase drug prices by the rate of inflation. LOL, because all that means is that, even the just basic analysts are like, all that means is they're going to introduce drugs at a higher cost than they would have otherwise, since they know that they're not going to be able to increase by more than inflation. Although if this Biden reign continues, maybe we can see more increases in drug costs, because maybe we can see more increases in inflation. Who knows? So those caps are going to be introduced as well. Of course, the arguments from the pharmaceutical side, and even a couple of Democrats who have voted against this initially, their argument was, well, this is going to limit innovation, which is hilarious, because these big pharma companies, a lot of people don't necessarily realize they're not so much innovators as they are hedge funds. What they do is they buy up smaller manufacturers of drugs. They say, oh, that's a cool blood disorder drug, we're going to buy it, so that we can use our economies of scale to take it to market and make it more expensive and more successful. We can do a much better job manufacturing and marketing this. And it's something like, I want to say 75%, but I'm going to say, I think it's 60% is the number. But regardless of what that specific number is, the majority of the drugs that pharmaceutical companies manufacture and market to the public are not drugs that they initially made. They are drugs that they have bought up from other companies. So these companies aren't really innovating to begin with. Secondly, the analysis of this legislation concludes that maybe it'll limit about one innovation over the course of 10 years. So in about a decade, this legislation may prevent them from innovating like one of their about 1,300 estimated innovations over the course of that 10 years. So it's really a wash. I do know the number 75%. I took that from John Abramson's book, Sickening, and he writes about all of the work that he did. He's kind of started this work because he was called as a witness to examine confidential court documents in these cases against these big pharmaceutical companies. So he can't, in his book, detail a lot of that information because it's sealed and it's private. But he can write about all of his conclusions about the problems with the pharmaceutical industry and just how much power they have over our politicians and over the American people, and over our economy, really. So, but from his book, he states that about 75% of new pharmaceutical drugs add zero additional benefit. They add zero incremental benefit to things that are already on the market. They're just new and shiny prescription drugs for them to get doctors on board and to market to the public. No advertising cap in the US for that either. So they can pretty successfully convince the American public this drug is going to be really, really good for you. They've been telling us for decades, the cause of depression is low serotonin. Here are these serotonin SSRIs that are going to increase serotonin levels in your brain to combat depression. Now, we know that that isn't the case. That was untrue. Depression, there's no evidence that depression is linked to a chemical imbalance of any sort. Now, I was having this conversation the other day, like, well, what about all the people who SSRIs has helped with their depression? I'm one of them, you guys. SSRIs and antidepressants in general helped me in the short term to feel better. Here's the problem, is when you tell somebody the cause of your problem is fixed by this drug, I'm going to take that drug because I think it fixes a chemical imbalance in my brain. Now, I have since been able to get off of those antidepressant medications, and I'm really happy about that. They helped me for a time, but it's really hard to get off of those once you're on them. There are various, withdrawal effects. There are various side effects from coming off of them. And SSRIs and antidepressants in general can help you feel better, even if the cause of your depression isn't low serotonin. Alcohol helped me to feel better, even though the cause of my anxiety wasn't low alcohol in my blood. Alcohol increased dopamine levels, but then alcohol became a problem for me. If I had thought that, which I did actually, I'm a recovering alcoholic, I thought that alcohol was my solution to my anxiety. I thought I can just drink alcohol. It kind of takes away all of those inhibitions and all of that self-doubt and judgment and insecurity, and it helps me just kind of be normal until it became a problem. So just because something helps and helps you right now with your depression doesn't mean it's the long-term solution. And you might decide that it is for you. You might decide I can be on antidepressants for the rest of my life, and that is totally fine. If you don't have side effects from it, if you don't have adverse health events from your medication, then go for it. Do what you want. The choice is yours. The point is, when we tell people that this drug is the solution, antidepressants are the cure to depression, the vaccines are going to be the cure to end COVID. When we tell the public something that is a lie, we need to course correct when we figure out that this is not a lie, and give people other tools that they need to be healthy and to actually address the root causes of whatever their ailment is, whether that is getting COVID or whether that is depression or whether that's a heart condition. We've got to give people the real information, and it can't be so hard to search into an internet search box and all you see is a bunch of fact checkers trying to keep you away from the information you're trying to get to and pointed towards your true north, which is their narrative. I'm done.